I'm Sophia Cassiola.
And I'm Michael J. Epstein.
And you're watching
Without Your Head.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal.
I'm Treacherous Trista.
And we're joined by photographer, film reviewer, interviewer, Emilie Black. It's very nice to have you here.
Hello.
Now, you're normally interviewing people, and from what we understand, this is your first podcast interview.
It is. I did reviews for about 20 years. And then I started doing interviews about 5 years ago. And they're all by email. So it's not video, it's not audio, it's all in writing. So video is a bit weird to me.
I'm glad you chose Without Your Head for your first one. I'll be uphill from here. No.
All right.
So how did you get involved in reviewing movies and interviewing people?
Reviewing started about 20 years ago. Like I said, I was part of old message boards, old school message boards.
I remember those days.
I started in the Fangoria days when it was black text on white background, and there was like 6 of us. I think that was like 99, like something like that. And eventually the group grew and we moved over to the Horror Channel, then Dread Central, then social media happened. So message boards weren't needed anymore, basically. But while I was on one of those, I can't remember which one, a guy running a website from Germany was like, we're looking for someone in North America, because back then films were still delayed in European releases to review. They were looking for someone to review films in North America for their European website. So they'd still have it ahead of everybody, but they weren't breaking any kind of embargoes. So that's how I was like, oh, I can do it. And I started doing that, reviewing films. They would just basically pay for me to go to the movies. And I went to the movies 4 times a week and reviewed those films.
Now, was it?
Yeah.
So I assume it was always horror movies that you were interested in.
Mostly, I mean, I'll do whatever, but I technically kind of grew up going to Fantasia because I grew up outside of Montreal and then in Montreal. And when I was, I'd say 15, Fantasia started. So I couldn't go until the next year because the ratings up in Canada are a little bit different. If a film is rated 16 plus, don't matter if you bring your mom, your grandma, your great grandma, you're not getting in until you're 16. Right. So I had to wait till I was 16 to go to Fantasia.
Yeah, that's
but then I started.
17 is here, but not too many movies are rated NC-17.
Yeah, Quebec doesn't have an R rating. It's GPG 13 plus, 16 plus, 18 plus. There's no R, there's no X, there's no NC-17. So it's a little different than here. Like here, if someone under 16 is caught in a film that's 16 plus or R, it's kind of okay. Like they won't, not much is going to happen. In Quebec, there's some pretty crazy fines attached to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like films like American Psycho and House of a Thousand Corpses were rated 18 when they came out in Quebec. And they carded us when you bought your ticket and at the door of the theater.
My mom or me would have been fined a lot when I was a kid if we would have had it.
You wouldn't. The theater is.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
I was never carded going to the movies ever until it was the first one. It's happened twice now. And it was like when I was almost 40, it was at Texas Chainsaw 3D. And then recently the newest Rambo movie carded me. And I was like 43 years old or something.
So a 16-year-old employee was told you card everyone. Yeah, I started reviewing, going to film festivals, and eventually from festivals you make a lot of connections.
Yeah.
Especially festivals like Fantasia, genre connections as much as you can even think of. More than I even figured I would make going to that. And then I started changing, like swapping websites and doing more photography. Ended up at Dread Central, then Idle Hands, then Cinema Crazed.
So you said 99, like that's, I mean, the internet was around obviously, but it wasn't nearly as big. I got on the internet in 2000. And so how has the festivals changed over that time?
Well, how they change? Because I went mostly to Fantasia, the Montreal World Film Festival, and a few other locals at the time. The way they've changed, I feel like there's a better ease of getting international guests and international films. Because like Fantasia used to be like just, I think it was like a week or two back in the day, and now it's 3 weeks long. It's like 24 days, I think, every year.
I've never been to one.
Madness.
A few times, yeah.
I normally do like 9 days a year now. In 2017, I did all 24 days. And that's not something you should do. Like, you're just exhausted at the end of the festival because we're not just going to have fun like the public does.
Yeah.
Like we have work. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. So gone to a lot of those, moved to California. Now I have to fly back when I want to go. And I go to the California stuff now instead.
Yeah, longest one I've been to was 10 days with, at the time, Jason Mitten, who did our reviews at the time. So he did all the reviews and I did the interviews. But after 10 days, I was like, you're like delirious from watching like 10 hours of movies a day.
Yeah, festival like Fantasia, like on weekdays, they start around dinner time and they play up until about midnight. But after that, everybody goes to the pub for 3-4 hours. And then you go to bed. And then in the morning, you have to get up because the press stuff is at like 8:30 in the morning. So you do that, and then you do that again every day. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Trista, do you have a question? I know you did an interview with Emilie, but as we found out, it was through email.
Right, yeah. Emilie was gracious enough to include me in her Women in Horror movement for Cinema Crazed. And I'm wondering if you can talk more about Cinema Crazed for people that don't know.
Well, we're one of the slightly smaller websites because there's 3 of us basically. Felix, who's the owner, and he does a lot of the reviews. He reviews most of the major releases. So if you think mainstream superhero, the big tentpole films, that's all his usually. And then there's me, and I do mostly film festivals and independent films. So I get a lot of films as screeners that I watch at home. I had to give myself like a good setup because otherwise you go nuts watching all that stuff on your computer. And we have Phil Hall, who takes care of harder to find films. He's got like his own thing that he does where films nobody's heard of, that kind of stuff. He'll write big pieces on them. That's just the 3 of us. Occasionally we'll have guests, helpers, if you will, like Jeremy Knox. Occasionally we'll send in a piece here and there. And we had, for a little while, we had Tomas Navarro, a friend of mine that helped. If we went to a festival together, me and him, and the big film of the fest, I'd already reviewed it. He would make a review as well so that we could review it as part of the festival that we were attending.
Now, did the 3 of you know each other before Cinema Crazed?
I knew Felix from the old message boards.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like that weird little family through the message boards.
Well, interestingly enough, when we started Without Your Head in 2006, the guy started with John, was me, Troy, and Troy's my brother. And John I met on message boards too, so I know the message board days. I think the Without Your Head message board is still around somewhere, but there's no links to it, so I'm not sure how you access it. But maybe I should find it. Maybe there's still like leftover people there. So
maybe there's 4 people having crazy conversations in there,
which really was probably at least 6, maybe even longer years ago. There was like honestly 3 or 4 people that were still there and having conversations with themselves. So it was cool.
As long as they're having fun.
Yeah. I tried to get them to come over to the Facebook, but they were all very anti-social media. So hopefully they still listen somewhere. Trista, you have another question?
Yeah, I sure do. So I've been admittedly sort of ignorant to the art of film criticism, I think, in the past. Because I'm an artist, so I've always come at it from sort of a defensive point of view, just like assuring my other creative friends that the critics don't know what they're talking about. But I've only recently become very interested in how integral it is, because I feel like with so much content and with the advent of all of the accessibility on the internet, a lot of people just go to Rotten Tomatoes and they look at the number and then they choose how to watch something. And I'm worried that is something like people really committing this kind of time to write these thoughtful essays on film, there's something that's getting lost there, right? So only recently I've come around to really think this is so important and exciting, and I'm worried about losing it. Can you talk about that for a minute? You know much more than I do about it.
Well, it's hard to explain because like I've been doing it for so long, it just is kind of thing. I feel like as a film reviewer, you have to understand film a little bit. So, like go to film talks. I've done a lot of those, like when there's master classes at film festivals, I'll attend those, even though I don't plan on making a movie ever. I just want to know how they're made. And I grew up reading Fangoria magazine. So like I read that religiously, like, sorry, mom, dad bought it for me every month, even though I wasn't allowed. But my parents were separated and my mom didn't want me to read Fangoria and my dad would just pick it up for me. So I read it every month. I learned a lot. At one point, I considered going into special effects. Didn't do it. I'm allergic to most of the materials. But I learned a lot about how it works. So as a reviewer, I feel it's important to know how it works. So, like, I know the difference like between a micro budget film and a Marvel film. Like, there's probably things I won't let a Marvel film get away with. Okay. If your framing is bad and you had that much money to go back and redo it, why didn't you? But if your framing's a little off and you had zero budget, I'm probably just not going to talk about it. Like, it's like, you do what you can with your budget. And yes, films need to be like judged kind of evenly, but you have to consider where it comes from too. Like if it's someone's first short film, there's no reason in completely destroying it unless they ask. Because that's happened to me. I've had people send me their movie and be like, please go through it and destroy it and tell me everything that's wrong. And it's like, okay, I will. But it's, as for my review, for me, I know some film reviewers, not a lot, very few, but some love being negative. I don't see the point. Like if the acting's bad, I'll just make a teeny tiny paragraph about the acting and then I'll concentrate on like the special effects that were great. Like, there's always something in the film that's good. I'm still going to say the film was not interesting if it wasn't. Like if it put me to sleep, it put me to sleep. That just is. But there's some things that are not as important and shouldn't be, like they should learn from it, yes. But I'm not as worried about what would be more important in a big budget and a tiny budget. And most of what I review is the smaller budget stuff. Like when one of the PR people this week told me, oh, this was just like a $1.6 million movie. It's like, that's the most expensive movie I've reviewed in months. So like, it's different. It's every film reviewer has their own way of doing it. Personally, I don't believe in making it super negative. But as a Rotten Tomato approved person, if it's bad, I do have to mark it as rotten. If it's good, it's good. It's just that I always try to find something, at least one thing good in the film, and there's always at least something that was done right.
Yeah, I noticed that is a problem with some people who review films. They'll, like you said, they'll review them on the same level. Exactly what you're saying. So if you say something, that you can improve on the story or the acting or something like that, that's something anyone on any budget could do. But obviously, if you're saying this looks inexpensive, if they made it for $10,000, they know that. So of course they would love to just go out and get $2 million to make their movie, but that's not going to happen. But they can improve, in other ways that they don't need a lot of money to improve on. And it's always weird to me too, because I think the people on websites, you think that they would have a love for independent horror movies to even want to write about them in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing at Cinema Crazed. Like I've been told by filmmakers, oh, I read your website because like you guys actually take the time to watch our movies. It's one of those things too. Some websites just don't have the time. It's not that they don't want to. There's so much out there that they have to nitpick. We don't necessarily get early access to Disney movies or films like that. And I don't think we need to, because there's other stuff out there for us to review that fits more with what people read on our site anyways. Like we know which reviews get the most hits. We know that for some reason, every time we review a film from India, our numbers spike.
Oh, really?
Like, okay, then give me more. I'll watch more of them. Because to me, they're just, also to me, it doesn't matter what language they're in. As long as the film is good, the film is good.
Mm-hmm.
I know some folks don't want to watch anything with subtitles, which I think they're doing themselves a disservice because there's so much out there that they're not watching.
That's a good thing about the rise of the streaming sites is we get to see a lot of movies that we wouldn't have been able to see otherwise, unless you went to festivals or something. But at home, you wouldn't have been able to see all these movies from other countries. But now with Shudder and things, a lot more pop up.
Yeah, and they've seemed to have made an effort in the last year because nothing big is getting produced right now. It feels like there is some, but it's not as much as normal because of the pandemic. So they're forced to look at other sources. And I've noticed like Netflix is a lot more French content suddenly, which for me is fun because I speak French. But it's also fun because it's stuff like they're getting movies from Quebec shown in the US, which is not something that used to be normal at all. And now people just watch them randomly because it's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Was there any specific, I know you said you read Fangoria, but was there any specific reviewers that you liked, critics that you liked that made you want to do that?
Not necessarily. I know that sounds bad, but like I read a lot of magazines, like a lot. And that's a lot also how I learned my English through reading and TV and movies and watching stuff and having to look words up because I had no idea what they were talking about. And of course, like people like Tony Timpone and Mike Gingle had an influence because I read Fangoria so much. But I also read a lot of Premiere magazine from France, not the American one, the French one, because my auntie had a subscription. So when she was done with them, they were mine. As a 13-year-old, that's about the only way you get a lot of magazines is somebody else just handing them to you. So like I read a lot about
Fangoria and Monster Magazine was my brother got them and he's 9 years older.
Yeah, I only have younger siblings, so they weren't about to give me their magazines. My sister is 3 years younger, but my brother is 14 and a half years younger. So if anything, we influenced him a little bit, but not that much the other way around because I moved out, he was 4.
Right.
So it's one of those things, like, yeah. In terms of like specific film reviewers, like I don't really remember the names of the people at Premiere back in the 90s. That was a long time ago. And now like I know I've read a lot. I read a lot on websites like Fangoria, Dread Central, whatnot, like all of them. But a lot of the time to me, it's more about reading about the specific film than the specific person. And of course, having worked at Fangoria, not Fangoria, I'm sorry, Dread Central, I didn't work at Fangoria. I wish I had. But at Dread Central, I knew everybody on the team. So it wasn't necessarily like, they weren't like these reviewers that I read. There were these people that I had brunch with on Sunday. So it was a little bit different reading their opinions. And then we'd talk about it. And then other stuff about the films would come out because there's stuff you just don't write. That comes out in conversations. And the same with like going to conventions and festivals, you meet them and we talk about films. And sometimes you don't necessarily have the time to read as many of them as you would like. But I love discussing film with like, why am I blanking on his last name? Jason from CTV in Canada. I hang out with him at Fantasia a lot. So we discuss films a lot. Didi Crimmins, like people like that. Because we all hang out at the fests, like with Izzy Lee and Maud Michaud, who's a filmmaker, but she always has these great ideas about the films that she just saw. And like hang out with people like Heather Buckley that she's got a lot to say about all the movies. So it's like, it's not just reviewers, it's a lot of folks. Like when you go to festivals, it's a mix of folks that review, that make films and that love films. And the discussions get really interesting there.
Trista, another question?
Do you have a favorite horror film?
Just one?
You can name a couple. We have time.
Just one?
There's no fines involved if you only need.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of Brotherhood of the Wolf, the Pack des Loups. Watch that like twice a year. I try not to watch it more because I feel like I need to watch more movies that I haven't seen than keep rewatching the same stuff. But like that one, like I'll watch it twice a year, probably every year. Nightmare on Elm Street. I love the whole series, even though they're super flawed the further along you go. But the first one is fantastic. And then after that, it's just fun to watch what Robert Englund did with Freddy as he went along, basically. Like, you can see that he was trying to evolve it without making it exactly the same all the time. So that's interesting to me, like, because I love slashers, and Freddy is really interesting to me because, except for one, it was the same man all along. And when you watch the other slashers, it's often different actors. So the different takes come from the fact that it's different people. In that series, the different takes all come from the same guy. So to me, that's something that's always been interesting. And also because Freddy scared me so bad when I was a kid. Like, really, really, really bad. Like, just a poster at the video store was enough to make me like walk away, like, no. And now it's one of my favorites. And another one that I always tell people to find and watch, because it's completely insane. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's all over the place. I love it. It's Bloody Mallory from France.
I'm not seeing that.
I have her tattooed on my rib cage. Like, I love it that much. But it's the weirdest film you'll ever watch. Like, it's like, what am I watching? Why is this so good? This shouldn't be this much fun. Why? And then you end it and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it again.
I'm writing it down here and then.
Yeah, you really sold that. Wow.
So no Freddy tattoo, just Bloody Mallory?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, my side is Ripley, Lady Snowblood, Bloody Mallory, a Stormtrooper, Freddy, and Jason.
Whoa.
And we're adding to it once, I can go out and get a tattoo again.
Yeah. So instead of a sleeve, you have a rib cage of.
Yeah. Yeah, because I work in a corporate environment.
Right.
So I don't have a choice. Like, I'm not sure a Freddy Krueger tattoo with his claws in front of his face. Super well viewed in an office environment.
The world's changed. It's like there's no more message boards. Tattoos are probably a little more lenient. But.
Yeah, they're getting more lenient, but since the T-shirt is not appropriate, I don't think the tattoo would be either.
True. So you said your mom wouldn't let you read Fangoria and everything. Once you started, you have a website, you started writing about them. What does she think of that?
Honestly, I don't know.
Huh?
I still don't know. She doesn't. I don't think she reads.
We have her online. No.
I don't think she reads any of my reviews. I'm not sure. Horror movies are not her thing at all.
Has she seen your rib cage?
She's seen part of it. She hasn't seen all my tattoos yet, but she knows there's a lot. She knows there's all kinds of things going on there, because I also have
just keep your shirt on, Emilie.
I'm not taking it off. Don't worry. Nobody wants it. But I have the other side of my rib cage done with flowers, and I have camera film rolls on my screen. So yeah. I may have traumatized my parents.
I like the contrast.
We think that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I like the contrast. Flowers on one side and Freddy on the other side.
It makes sense to me, at least.
Yeah. It was Bloody Mallory? Was
Yeah.
the name? All right. Yeah. I'm making sure I wrote it down right. I've not even heard of that one. Very
It's a little hard to find, so let me know if you can't find it.
Yeah. Well, I'll do my best to find it. So, this last year has been strange. So, without the actual festivals to go to, what's this been like? Are you doing the virtual festivals?
Some. Most of them, I've not actually applied for a press online. I did for Fantasia because I wanted access to their press library. But most of the festivals, I was able to get a lot of films directly through the film PRs, like I normally do anyways. So most film festivals have their own PR, but every film has its own PR as well, usually, unless they're a very, very small budget film. And those will send screeners or screener offers into your inbox. Like, I get probably 40 a week. I don't review 40 films a week, but I have to go through those and be like, this one, not that one, maybe this one, put that one on the side if we have more time. And then I request them.
What goes into that, your decision what to review and what not to?
It's hard to tell. It's like the pitch of the PR person will make a difference.
Which sometimes is good. I mean, sometimes they could oversell a movie and sometimes
Yeah. And eventually, as a film reviewer, you get to know who oversells their films and who undersells their films.
We're doing the interview. I know that too.
Yeah, and there's also like I have friends that are programmers at film festivals, so I hear like, oh, this movie is so good. So when that film comes through as a PR pitch, it's like, well, I'll take it. Like, or this is so weird. It's like, okay, I definitely want that one. Because if it's weird, you got me. Because like, I don't know how many tales of a teenager finding themselves I've seen in the last 3 years. Like, find me something else. Like, get me something else. I'm not saying they're all bad, but eventually they start to sound the same. And the pitches all sound exactly the same. So it's hard to tell which one's going to be good.
Right. Yeah, I just from doing the show, I always think if it's something that's like clearly just almost like they made a movie to make a movie, even if it's technically well done, that's probably like the least thing I'm interested in. And if something, even if it's technically not the greatest, if you could tell like either they had fun making it or they had something they wanted to do with it, to me, that's much more interesting.
Yeah, and you know, when you get 40 different movies coming through your inbox a week, sometimes I'll also look at who wrote it, who directed it, cast, because some actors always pick good movies, good scripts. So when those names show up, you go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. Or some actors just go for the oddest things they can find. Mm-hmm. And when their names pop up, you're like, oh yeah, I want that. Because if that's not good, it's going to be weird.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. So it's eventually you get used to that also. And of course, like some PR houses send more stuff, some send less stuff. Some will straight up send a movie and be like, watch it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. If you want to review it, you review it. Because they know that at the end of the year, we didn't last year because last year was just too weird. But usually at the end of the year, we do like the 10 favorite films of the year. And some of those are films we didn't review. But in December, a lot of PR people will send more movies so that we can get around to watching everything we missed, which makes December a crazy month.
I know also from doing the show, like, because, you know, we watch a lot of movies too that's sending. And if you watch a lot of stuff that you might not be into, it does make the stuff that stands out or that you like really stand out more. Because it's like, you be watching a bunch of stuff and it's like, whatever. And then like, whoa, this one's like really cool. It makes you want to tell everybody.
Yeah. And you also learn eventually stuff that's just not going to be for you.
Right. That's a good point too, I think, for reviewers, because even if you personally don't like it, it might still be for somebody else. Like there's movies I think everyone's seen that I personally didn't like, but I know it's a good movie. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. It's just it wasn't for me, like you said.
Yeah, like romance films, I just can't. To me, they're all bad. They're not. Like my sister loves that stuff, but I can't. Like nothing against Nicholas Sparks, just not for me. Was not made for me. And those movies, I'm sure people that love them. I just get bored every time I watch them. So I feel like it's not fair if I review it because I go into it knowing that I'm just going to be bored.
Right.
That's not fair.
I always think of it's almost like if you don't like red onions or something, and like you'd give a red onion pizza a bad review or something with red onions a bad review. It's like, well, you personally don't like red onions doesn't mean the food is bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same with film. Like it's the same with art in general. Like, because as a film reviewer and also do photography, my photography is probably not everybody's cup of tea. Like I know some folks are not going to like it. Like I know my mom is not about to want one of my prints of somebody with an eye turning into an alien on her living room wall, but she'll probably want my Eiffel Tower print. Like. It's the same with films. It's the same with food. It's the same with everything.
Oh, you want to talk about your photography? How? When did that come about? Was that before or after the reviewing?
I think I've always done photos. like give me a camera and I'll take pictures. When I was a kid, they weren't badly framed. They were blurry. They were junk because I didn't know what I was doing. In high school or so. No, before high school. Like around maybe 12, 13, one of my aunties taught me a little bit more about photography because she was a photographer. She passed away when I was 13. So that's why I know it's around then that I that I learned that. And then in high school, I started traveling with my own camera and traveling without my parents, but with the school. So it's so exciting when you're 16 to go somewhere out of the country without your mom. and I took, like, the first trip was New York City, and I took something like 5 rolls of film in 5 days. Crazy kid that took pictures of everything. And looking back now, it's like, there's maybe 4 good pictures in there. But I took a lot of pictures and I learned that way. And then around the same time, I started going to concerts a lot, and I started doing concert photography. And that I found out I was good at it, even when I didn't like the band. So if I had to go see a concert with my sister and my cousin, they wanted to see a certain band, I went with them, I took pictures, I was able to sell those pictures. Oh, hey. And then when I started doing film festivals as a reviewer, I also did photography because there's a lot of Q&As. And for those, it's actually kind of hard to shoot because the lighting is not always ideal. They move and they don't pay attention to you. They do when you're doing the red carpet stuff. They'll look straight at you. But when they do the Q&A, no, like they're doing their thing. And to get good pictures out of that was something else. And then I started doing convention coverage. When I worked for Dread Central, they sent me to everything that was around here. And I did a couple in Texas with them. We flew to Texas in winter. That was a fun one. But we worked a lot of conventions. I did a lot of photography, and they published it, usually along with like an event report, like a review of the event, if you will, with a full gallery. Eventually, galleries got less popular, so they stopped doing that because everybody posted everything on social media. So nobody would go to the website specifically for convention photos anymore. And then I started doing my own portrait stuff. So that's where I started having a lot of fun. Like, I get to book people because I've done festival and conventions for so long that I know a lot of people. And a lot of those folks are folks that other people want to see pictures of. So, I was able to reach out to, like, say, Tiffany Shepis and do a photo shoot with her. That was great. Like, we did a photo shoot in the woods. She was like a grown-up Snow White, that kind of stuff. I got to shoot with Nick Principe. I asked him and he was down. So he was, it was my big bad wolf in another photo shoot that we did here in San Diego, weirded everybody out at the park. And then, like, it started growing from there. Like, I do a lot with models because some stuff, it doesn't necessarily need to be someone who's recognizable, because if their face is fully covered, there's no point. And so I do a lot with models, local models to San Diego and Los Angeles. We did like a Lady Krampus one year. We do, I have one coming up, like one of my models who's also a film director, starting film director, Jamie Farting with Savage Zach Productions. She's super awesome. And she just got a clawfoot tub. And I was like, oh my God, you have a clawfoot tub? She's like, yes. I'm like, can we put blood in it? and that's probably going to happen. Like, we do that kind of stuff. And then I book other people, like this year's calendar, because that's the goal, is to have a book in the end of it all. So every year I publish a calendar, as in, this is what we did this year. There's 14 pictures for you guys, because 12-month, front cover, back cover. This year's one, like, made me super happy to get her, like, nerded when I pulled up into her driveway. I kind of lost it for 5 minutes. And then I was like, get yourself together. You're a professional. And then we spent 2 hours doing photos with Cynthia Rothrock. So that was a big deal to me. I know she's not genre at horror, but she still played with weapons for us. And she's an action actress. Like, as a kid of the 90s, she was the one lady who kicked behinds, like, in nobody's business. So getting her was fantastic. And now we're working on, well, I say we because I have a photo assistant that I work with. We're working on getting this year's calendar started soon, shooting. But with the pandemic, it's really hard. Because you have to be safe. You have to make sure your models feel safe. You have to make sure the location is safe. And so we don't announce who's in the calendar ahead of time until the photos are done. That way, if someone has to back out, they don't look like they backed out, basically. Right. And also, I don't look weird for saying, hey, we had that person, and then we don't. So we only announce them after they're done. What we do is, on the day of the shoot, we do like a family selfie, and then we post that on social media as a teaser. Like, hey, look who that is. So hopefully we'll get some good ones, because in the past we got Cynthia Rothrock, Adam Green, Tiffany Shepis, Nick, and a few other local San Diego folks that most people don't know, but out in San Diego, people that are in the independent film scene in San Diego all know them. So those folks, some of them are coming back this year because gotta shoot at home as much as we can right now. So hopefully we'll get some really great cover person. So if anybody wants to do it, right? If anybody wants to get covered in blood.
Contact you if they did want to do it.
I'm sorry?
How would they contact you if they were interested?
Facebook, Instagram. Facebook is under my name, Emilie, IE at the end. Black. Instagram is EMYB photo. Super simple. That's my Twitter as well. That's like, I try to use it for everything. Like my website is the same name with .com. That's why I used that name, because it was available on all of them. So I was able to grab it on all the platforms at the same time. So I didn't have to worry about rebranding on every social media.
Right. And if they were interested in the calendar too, where would they find information on that?
On social media, usually, except we pre-sell in October. And right now I do have extras left, but we're almost 4 months into the year.
Well, yeah.
So it's a little bit odd, but if somebody wants one, just let me know. We can figure something out.
I just want to collect it. Yeah.
You might like one. We'll get you one. I got a few left, because what I do is I always print more than I need, because then when I approach people to do photos, I can show them what we actually do, as opposed to, because when you approach people at conventions, a lot of people do that. But I approach them with, you've met me before. I've covered your work. Here's what I do. Would you like to participate? And also never assume anybody works for free, because that's lame. Mm-hmm. So never ever assume anyone works for free. And then, you start a conversation, and then we trade contact info or social media handles and talk about it, and eventually set something up and do a shoot and cover people you love in blood and goo and all kinds of fun stuff.
Exactly. So, Trista, did you have another question?
Do you have any advice for someone who might aspire to a similar career as yours, regarding photography, writing? You do so many things.
Covering people in goo and blood.
The cover people in goo and blood, like, just do it. You'll see, you'll love it. Just find someone who's willing. Have them sign a release form too, because you don't want no problems. Always get release form signed. That's like my one thing from my photography. One of my photography teacher that shot he worked for the San Diego Chargers, but he was also a photo teacher. He said, just get your contracts done, get your release form done when you're a photographer, because you need that to be able to publish. If you do it on your own with friends, still get it, because 5 years down the line, they could get mad. You could get into an argument, still get it. For me, one of my models passed away. Oh. So unfortunately, I can't ask him anymore if he wants to be published, but he signed off on it when we shot it. So we're able to still publish, although I feel a little bit weird about it, but my friends told me not to, and just get them published anyways. Get your stuff in order, learn about it, learn about the logistical stuff, but also learn about the legal stuff for photography. Because on photography shoots, accidents can happen. So get covered first. In film reviews, well, the only thing I say is watch movies and write about them. And read other reviewers, because you'll see there's kind of like a recipe. Everybody has their own way. Like mine follows, my reviews always follow a certain order for things. Like I start about what's the story, who wrote it, who's in it, and then other things like if the cinematography is really great, I'll talk about that. If there's special effects, I'll talk about that. Because you want to keep it like under 900 words probably, because people give up. People won't read you if it's too long. They just scan over it, read the ending and move on, or just go edit. No, that's too much. So nowadays, like a 1,500 word review, good on you, but most folks are not going to read it. So you have to also know your film, watch a ton of film. Don't just watch what you're interested in. Because like, I love slashers. I've always loved slashers. I love action films, but I'll watch other stuff too. I know that I don't watch a lot of romances because they don't work for me. But then again, like you get films like Spring, which is technically a romance with other weirdness happening at the same time, which works for me. And like when they sold Shaun of the Dead, they sold it as a rom-com, a zombie romantic comedy. But that works for me. But that doesn't work for everybody. But watch a lot of stuff and watch stuff from before your own time. Watch older movies. You have to know where things came from. You have to know that, scary films didn't start in 2010. Like they were part of the very first films ever made. So go look for those. Netflix is a bunch of that. Go look for all of those older films. You might not be super into it, but watch them while you fold laundry. Like, learn something, read about films. Find magazines like Fangoria and Scream Magazine and whatnot, and read those. See what other people are doing. And it's the same in anything. Like, look at what people are doing and what's working, and see what you're doing and what's working and what's not working for you. For me, like I used to write these long pieces, these ridiculously long pieces, and there was no point to it because people don't read the whole thing. So you have to learn to get into what your website wants, and every website has their own demands. I'm lucky that Felix at Cinema Crazed just lets me do whatever I want. But that's because I've been doing it for so long. When we brought Tomas on for a few films, he would send me the reviews. I would reread them, and then I would send them to him and be like, hey, how about you talk about this as well? Or can we cut that paragraph out? Can you rewrite this bit? But being that I had known him for so long, it was easy for me to communicate with him. Like, be open too, because your website owner or whoever brought you in will have comments on your first reviews. And probably for a while, they will have comments for you. I don't take it personally. They know what people want to read because they know which reviews, which articles, which piece have hits. And they know which ones don't. So you may start your own blog and do whatever you want, but at a certain point, you have to consider your readership. If nobody's reading you, but doing it for yourself is cool. And if that's what you want to do it. But if you want to be read, you have to offer something people want to read, basically. And also, like, as a reviewer, respect the film. Like, I've seen some reviewers, and I know of some reviewers, and I won't name them because that's not my style, that download their movies. Don't do that. Don't do that. PR people are glad to help you. That's their job. That's their job to get reviews. So if you're with a website or you have your own website, start reaching out to PR people. You don't need to download nothing. Like, don't download. Just go to the movies. Right now, it's a little hard to go to the movies, but like when the theaters are open, if you don't have any PR contacts when the PR theaters are open, go to that Friday one. Like, if you work until 5, there's probably a screening at 5:30. Go to your screening, and by midnight, you can have your review. And you'll still be at about the same time as everybody else by a few days. It's not that bad. Like, make your name that way, or make good reviews, be good about it, and reach out to people online. Don't be afraid to tweet people. They'll tweet back, or they'll ignore you. Worst can happen, they'll ignore you.
That's what I've always told people who ask me about how to get guests. I always say, like, the worst they could say is no or not reply at all. So
it's the same with my photography. I just approach them and talk to them. I show them what I do, and they say yes, or they say no, or they say maybe. Like, the maybe is usually a no. But the straight up no's, I'd rather get a straight up no than a maybe and then ignore me. Just tell me you're not interested.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me not worry about you. But you'd be surprised how many people will help you if you just ask nicely.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice, good advice. When you were saying earlier about like doing the reviews, if it's a director, an actor, whatever that like picks roles you like, is there any something you can name that like if they're involved in something you're going to watch it?
Okay. I will always take any Scott Adkins film that comes my way. Because good or bad, the man's fight scenes are always excellent. So even if the film is terrible, because there's been a few that the movie was really boring, the action sequences are always good. So he's like my action go-to. And like for a while there, I would always take like Well, I still do always take Brie Grant's films, either as a writer, director, actress, all of it as it's at least interesting. You will watch something of interest. Not all of her films have a big budget. Doesn't matter. She does good stuff. Like there's people like that, and it's pretty easy to know. Like Easily does mostly short films, and yeah, don't be shy about watching short films. Short films are good. Short films are good. And they're all over the place on Vimeo, on YouTube, on people's own websites.
Especially now, it used to be hard to find short films unless you were at the festival, but now there's a lot of platforms where you can watch them.
Yeah, it's not hard. And that's why we do roundups on the website. We do roundup reviews because a short film, it's harder to make a long review because there's not as much going on. So we do like these little block reviews. They get about 300 words a piece. And we do like 4 or 5 of them in one article, with a picture from each of them if we can get a picture. So like Easily is one of them that I always go for because our films are weird and I love it. Like there's always something that you're like, wait, what? And like, I know you guys know her, like Sofia Cassiola and Michael Epstein, like their films are fun. Sometimes they're weird. Most of the time they're weird, but that's why you watch them because like there's always something to say in their films. Like you're not going to waste your time.
I might even be in a couple.
I know you might be. I don't think I've reviewed one that you were in yet. So that means they haven't sent it to me yet. But yeah, people send me short films all the time. And if you make films, Cinema Crazed as a little send us your film box on the right-hand side. Send it that way. Don't send it in our DMs on social media. Because if you're not our friend, it can end up in that other folder and it can sit there with the weirdos. Because trust me, there's weirdos. Every week I have to go clear out the weirdos. And you'll sit there for a while with the weirdos getting ignored because there's photos I never want to see sitting in there right now every single week. So once your job is in the public eye, people send you a lot of stuff. So if you send it through the website, we know it's a film.
Yeah.
And we'll look at it and we'll be like, okay, there's a movie in there. Like, no, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I was thinking if you had advice for, because you had, Trista asked for advice for the people who wanted to do reviews, but do you have advice for independent filmmakers, of some ways to get your movie out there? Because I know some great stuff, but some people aren't good at like posting their movies on IMDb or there's no.
Yeah.
So
get an IMDb
or anything. Yeah.
Get an IMDb account. Get a Facebook page for it. Get an Instagram for it. Some folks love TikTok. I will admit I've not been on there because I'm a photographer and not a video maker. So there's no real point for me to get in there. I feel like, I should probably look into it, but right now there's just too much other stuff. Get yourself involved with film festivals. Look into them though first. There's a lot of film festivals out there. They all have a Facebook page. They all have a Twitter. They all have an Instagram. But look into them because not all of them are real. Some of them will charge you fees and you'll never hear about them again. So if you're not sure, look at what movies they've played before. Talk to other filmmakers because there's plenty of filmmakers out there and I haven't met one yet that was mean. So no, I haven't. I was like, I might have. No, there was one that was mean at a festival, but I didn't meet him. So it doesn't count. He was mean to the crowd, so I decided not to meet him. I was like, nah, I had no time for you, dude. But like, look into festivals, apply to film festivals, but also know which ones to spend on. Because film festivals, like the major ones, the Scream Fest, Fright Fest, Fantasia, they're great to get picked up by distributors, but they get thousands of films a year. So your first short film may or may not get picked. If it's excellent and amazing and insane, they'll take it. They will take it. But like, look into the festival so that they match what you're offering. So if you have a sci-fi film, send it more to a sci-fi fest. If you have a horror film, send it more to a horror fest. Because the Latino Film Festival of San Diego is probably not going to take your film if you're not Latino. It's pretty simple. Like, look into them. Don't just willy-nilly send them. Also, don't willy-nilly request waivers of fees. Because I've seen film festivals complain about that because it happens so much. Also, like, if you don't plan on getting it into film festival, upload it to Vimeo. or YouTube. Get a page for your production company and upload your stuff on there. And then share it and go online and find groups. Facebook has filmmaker groups. Share it in there. Get comments. Get comments. Don't take them personally. Some of them will hate your film. That's just how it is. Some folks will hate everything. Some folks will hate your film just for reasons that don't necessarily make sense to you.
They might even watch it. They'll just say they hate it.
Yeah, some folks will hate it without watching it. That's a thing. Like, just start sending it around and look at websites and see if they have a submission box. We do at Cinema Crazed. I know that larger websites don't have that anymore because they get too much stuff. They get too much stuff. So don't be one in a million in their inbox this week. Go start with the smaller sites. They might not look like anything, but we know each other too. So we pay attention to what everybody else posts about. So if 3 other film reviewers I know have posted about a film they loved, there's a chance I'm going to want to see it.
It also makes them easier to share. So if there's something up on a website, people can just click share, and that pops up on Facebook. Then other people share it on Facebook, and then Twitter, whatever. And
put them on your own page on YouTube and Vimeo, because it comes back to you. So there's a connection to you, and you can see the likes and you can see the comments, and leave the comments open. They're not going to be nice. Sometimes they're not all going to be good. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be bad. You're going to get trolls. That's just life. We get trolls all the time. I used to get trolls because I would get told that, how does she know about horror movies? She's a woman. When I started. So we had to fight that for a long time. And it still randomly happens when I hate a movie that somebody has loved and they think I'm wrong and they're looking for a reason and they can't find one. They'll attack the fact that I'm a woman. That happens. I don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. But leave your comments open, because you might get a comment from somebody from a website that goes, hey, I'd like to interview you. How do I reach out to you? Like that kind of stuff. And if you have contact info, put it in there, put it on your website, or put a link to your website on which you have a contact form. That way they can't directly grab your email and spam you. Because if folks have to click 4 times, they're not gonna bother to spam you. But if they want to reach you, they will do it. Put it out there for people to see, and be open to the comments, because it's not all going to be nice, but even the bad comments can teach you something. Usually the bad comments will teach you more than the, I love it.
Right. So well, you mentioned there about there's people who said, what do you know about horror movies? You're a woman. Has that gotten better over time? I assume it has.
It has, but it still happens. We still see it occasionally. We have the capacity to delete comments on our website. I don't know if Felix ever deletes anything really bad, because I don't know if we still get them, because I don't see them. We might still get them. I should probably ask him. When I started reviewing more action films for a while, I got some of that too. How does a woman know about that? And then I'm like, what? I've been watching action films since I was a kid. The number I watch per year, please don't give me that. And it's always been something like that too. I used to get, as a starting film reviewer, that women didn't know about film in general, not even a genre, just film in general. That's thankfully not a thing anymore. They don't really say that anymore, but I'll get the occasionally pissed off person that doesn't know what to say and goes for that. And I feel that it's one of those, they don't have anything else to fall back on, so they go for that. Or they're trying to go low and hit you and insult you. And to me, it's sorry, dude, you didn't like my review. It's life. If you tell me I have a typo, I'll go fix that. But because that happens sometimes. We published a review and we had to go back and change one of the actress's last name because she got married in between.
Oh, okay.
We went in there and fixed it.
Oh, that was very nice of you.
We don't mind doing that. That's not a problem. If a movie changes title, because it will happen when a movie, between the time it's made and the time it's distributed, we might have seen it at a festival around the middle, and at distribution they changed the name. Then we'll go and correct the name. That's not a big deal, like typos, names, that kind of stuff. But if you think I'm wrong about my opinion, it's staying.
Was that ever an issue at the festivals or conventions, or primarily people online?
Primarily people behind their screens will have the balls to tell you that kind of stuff. At conventions, it used to be, it's not an issue anymore, and it's potentially partially because, one, I'm older than I used to be, and I don't tolerate it. When I was younger, too, I worked conventions in like mini skirts and high heels, and now I don't have the patience for that stuff, so I work them in jeans and t-shirts. But we would get, and I'm not the only one, I'm saying we, because we had a full crew of women on our team, we would all get harassed at conventions. It was ridiculous. And I started working festivals when I was like 18. And you know, getting harassed by fans, by filmmakers sometimes, by actors that are really ridiculously famous that will talk to you boobs for a couple hours. It's like when you're 18, it's uncomfortable. When you're 40, you're like, yo, dude. There's a thing where you learn to just put them in their place eventually. And I know I still see it happen with the younger girls at conventions, but there's also been a big change in that when I started going to conventions, my first convention was a Fangoria show. In the whole entire panel room of the convention, there was probably 5 women. Now it's about 50-50. So that makes a big difference. So like if a girl or a woman is worried about that going into a convention, no, just go. There's a bunch of us. If you're uncomfortable, find one of us that have been here forever. It's easy. We're easy to spot. We're the ones in the ugly sneakers because we're comfortable. We have all our gear attached to us and usually a press badge. We're the ones that have been doing this forever. Like come find one of us and we'll help you. And also know that a lot of the guests have seen a lot of stuff. When I was younger, like I've seen some stuff, and I've had at one convention, I had a guy follow me around absolutely everywhere the whole day. And when I walked by, I think that was Kane Hodder's table. Kane was like, "Are you good? Are you good?" Like they know, they see it from afar. So they will literally like step in. Like I've seen others step in. Like Kane only asked me if I was good, and I was like, dude, he's following me, but you can't come home with me. I get in my car and I leave.
Kane is a great guy to have as your bodyguard.
Well, I don't want to put that kind of pressure on him. He's a sweetie.
That's very convenient.
He's a sweetie. I don't feel like I need a bodyguard, but like if there's a problem, like go to someone who works for the convention, go to one of the regulars. Like people will tell you, like, don't worry about it. Like we got it. Like we'll help you. Or if you go to security at the convention, they'll handle it. It's their job. It's literally their job. They might look imposing, but it's their job. And a lot of conventions in the last, I'd say 5 years, have added new rules that if you attend, those are the rules that are like when you buy your ticket, it's part of the terms or whatever. And one of them is that started a few years back is cosplay is not consent. So it's not because a girl is wearing a gold bikini that you can touch her. So like, and they do take it seriously. They will ban people. We've seen it happen. So don't think that it's just for show. We've seen it happen at big conventions, at film festivals. Like I know that some people have been banned from big film festivals. They're not allowed to come back because they've harassed people. So just say something to someone. And if you're too shy, go to a lady first and they'll help you. Like we've done it, we'll take you to them. Some of us have been there for 20 years, so we come with the decor. Like we're part of the deal. And if it happens the other way around, if you're a dude and is made uncomfortable by someone, reach out to somebody else. Like don't worry, like we'll never make fun of you if you're a guy who's being harassed. Like that's just as bad. We don't see it as much, but I know it exists. So like, don't worry, like if you're a cosplayer, if you're just attending, if you're worried about anything, if you're scared of something, like say something to someone and someone will help you. Even if it's not convention staff, like someone will step in with you.
Trista, you have a question?
What do you think are the best and worst parts of your job?
The best is I get to see pretty much all the movies I want to see. The worst is some of those movies are bad.
You also get to see the ones you don't want to see.
Yeah, there's sometimes like you think you want to see a movie, then you watch it and you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do with this? It's so bad. Like if you don't know, like you don't know how many bad movies a year we watch as film reviewers. Like we get a lot of stuff. I will review them, most of them anyways, but if something is just horrendous, I will occasionally reach out to the PR and be like, hey, you don't want that review. Trust me, you don't. It's really rare that I will do that, but there has to be a good relationship between reviewers and PR people. Because if you keep like super negative reviews, they'll stop sending you stuff. But generally speaking, like I will review everything that I'm supposed to that I get. But I do watch a lot more than what I get for review. And it's kind of a joke that I've had with another reviewer friend. It's like, we watch poo, so you don't have to. like we will guide you away from the bad movies and towards the good movies. So to do that, you have to watch all these terrible movies. The further along you get in your career, the least you get less and less of the really bad stuff. Because we have kind of, you become able to see like when the PR pitch comes in, oh yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Like, you know the story and you're like, oh no, like no. But that's probably the best and the worst, but also it's a lot more work than people think it is. Because sometimes you have to look up actors' names because you saw them on screen and you have no idea who they are. That's where I live on IMDb practically because there's their picture and then their name. And please, if you're an actor, put your headshot on your IMDb, please, so I know who you are in the movie. Because then I have to go and like plop the names and put them in Google Images and then look at this. Because sometimes the character's name are not clear in your movie. Mm-hmm. And then we look for it. And so it's a lot more work. And that's like, people are like, oh, that must be so much fun. All you do is watch movies. Like, oh no, all I do is watch movies, research a movie, write about the movie, make sure I don't make a mistake, send it in, make sure we have a picture that's in a format that will work. Most good PR companies will send you photos. A lot of them don't. Of the smaller ones don't. Excuse me. And that's part of what will make your work more difficult. So when people think like it's just fun and games, and the film festival sounds like I'm sitting there watching movies 10 hours a day, but I still need to review those movies. And 10 hours is probably 5 movies that I still need to do. And then I need to go network. And you think networking is just partying? No, it's not. It's actually work. That's why personally, I drink like 1 drink while I go networking, 1 alcoholic drink, and everything else is water because I don't want to be the drunk girl. That makes the rounds quick. If you're the drunk girl at the party, everybody knows. Or the drug guy, everybody knows. It's like everybody thinks it's like this big fun thing that we just get to sit down on our couch and watch movies and then quick, write a review. No, a review is not a 5-minute deal. Like there's a lot of work in there. It's still fun. And the day it's not fun anymore, then you go do something else.
There's something I've always wondered about. Is there really any benefit to like a really bad review for like an independent movie? I know there's people who just like negative, but I always thought that about their own website. Like if it's like an independent movie and you just didn't really like it all, I don't see what the benefit to anyone is even putting that review up.
There's no real point in if it's purely negative. Mm-hmm. So like look for something good. If there's absolutely nothing good, if you don't feel like you should review it, then let them know because they're waiting for it. That's the thing. If they sent you their movie, they're waiting for the review. So like be honest, but be nice to them. Because I've gotten movies that were just so bad. And we try to be fair to everybody. And we try to, because we can't just review what we love. Of course. Like we can't. We can't. We have to be fair and review everything good, bad.
Otherwise, what's the point? Otherwise, people, if you just said you liked everything, then...
Yeah, if you like everything, there's no point. There's no point to what you're doing because all you're doing is liking everything. Mm-hmm. But like as much as a totally negative review is not really useful, a totally positive review that's just gushing with no real explanation to it, there's no real point to that either. Like I tried to say, like this week I published a review for Swan Song, and it's like a 4.5 out of 5 kind of film. Like it's really good. It's not going to be for everyone. So it's an independent film, but it's really good. But like I don't just want to say, hey, this is really good. Like that's not a review.
Right.
Like why? Like why? And go into it. And that's where knowing film comes into play as well. Because like in that one, I know I speak about the cinematography of it. And you have to understand that. And for me, cinematography might be a little more important because I'm a photographer. So framing and lighting and all of that is something that I've studied. And I know that's not the case with everyone, but everybody can tell you if it looks good or it doesn't, or it's too dark, it's too bright, but sometimes it's on purpose that it's too bright. So you have to understand that when you talk about that, your reviews can't just be like this little teeny tiny, like, hey, I love it, everybody's cool, everybody's good, or everybody sucks. Those are not reviews. Those are just anybody on Twitter. Because we get plenty of that on Twitter, on Facebook, on anywhere. You get lots of that. And if you just want to do a 15-second review, get yourself a TikTok account. You'll get millions of followers. And you'll be able to do your thing. Like everybody does it differently. We do the 600 to 900 word type of reviews because we like to get into it.
So where, besides Cinema Crazed, where's other places people can see your work?
My reviews and interviews are all on Cinema Crazed at this point. Before that, I was with Idle Hands. And they changed their address to their blog, so I'm not sure anymore. But if you Google Idle Hands blog and you go into their Flickr account, I used to do convention coverage for them. So I did toys and collectibles photography.
Oh, cool.
Which is a lot of work on the convention floor, surrounded by 150,000 people. 150,000 of your closest strangers. And I did a lot of their photography. My name on their photos is a little different because I was married at the time. So they're all under Emilie Netzel. But I have a few 100,000 photos on there, I think. And before that, I worked for Dread Central, and my byline was changed there to follow Emilie Black. So if you look for my name, you'll find what I did. The galleries were taken down because they were just using space and people weren't checking them out. So those are gone. I've uploaded some of that to my Instagram, but you have to scroll way to the bottom. So if you're patient, you'll find them. But it's convention coverage that I did a lot for them. I did some reviews because I ended up at film festivals where nobody else was going. Literally, I've been to a film festival. There was 4 people in the room.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, in Big Bear. It was fun for me. I got to go to Big Bear. And at the time I was married and I took my husband with me and he was sitting there with me. So it was the 2 of us and 2 more people at the screening. That was very, very interesting. So there were just one review across the whole internet for those movies because I was the only press person in the room. But like, yes, Dread Central doesn't have a whole lot left. Idle Hands has a lot, but it's under my married name because I never got it changed on there because it would mean going to every one of those photos and renaming myself. We're not doing that. and yeah, my reviews for now are all at Cinema Crazed. I don't really work for anyone else right now.
Yeah,
I might be eventually. Huh?
Yeah, we mentioned Trista, but you've done a bunch of interviews for
yes.
I
think we have 18 posted so far. Not 18, more than 18.
Maybe 20 since it's 20.
32, because it's 2 a day, but we didn't post anything on Sundays. So about 32 at this point posted. I've got a total of 56 that have responded with their interviews, and I've got 17 pending response. So it's a really good response rate. I'm surprised because usually a response rate is max a third, max. And I got almost everyone at this point. It feels like I got more than 80% responded already. And of the ones that haven't responded, like I sent them a reminder because it's a busy month and I know everybody's doing so much other stuff at the same time. And it's women in horror month. So women in the genre are all getting pinged on every which way, every which side. So I just remind them. I reminded them once last week and some of them said, oh yeah, I'll get you over the weekend. So, by Monday, we'll see how high we are in our response rate, but it's looking good.
Very cool.
Posting 2 a day. And I tried to do, because I'm the one that did all of them. I tried to do not just directors. I did directors, writers, actresses, producers, special effects, authors, anybody any woman that worked in a creative field in the horror genre, I wanted to get involved because I want women out there that are working in those fields, and it's not necessarily easy to know that we don't just think about the directors when we think about that. And for us, like, it's not just one type. It's not just, actresses, great. I love it because they're the ones everybody recognizes. But then, like, who knows their producers? And I know a lot of girls and women, I shouldn't call them girls, they're women. A lot of the ladies have produced their own work to be able to get their work out there. So when they say I'm a writer, director, producer, we leave the producer in there because a lot of folks will eliminate it because you don't think about it. But it's important because it means that they produce their own work. So it shows to other people like, hey, maybe you're not getting the jobs. Maybe you can produce it yourself. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. It's and everybody's like referring us to other women. That's why one of my questions, like, who else in the genre should we pay attention to? And I don't just mean actresses and directors. I mean anybody. And we've been getting a lot. And funny enough, probably at this point, 60% of the ladies have said Gigi Guerrero. So that's fantastic because she's doing so great for herself.
Yeah, she's great. She's been on the show a bunch of times.
Yeah, and I've shot with her. She's been my model. So it's been one of those, like, her name keeps coming back. And I'm like, all right, this is great. But I want everybody to give me, like, names of people we don't think about necessarily. Like, I love her. And I'm so glad everybody does too. I also want names of people I don't know. So that next year I can go to those people and be like, hi, we're going to cover you. Because so-and-so said you're important.
Yeah.
Because I want them to know that they're important too, because some of them have only one thing produced at this point, and they're doing their best. And some of them are working against the odds where they are. I mean, the US is one way of working. Canada is a different way of working. We have folks from Australia. We have folks from England. I have a couple from Germany. We have some from all around the world, almost. I would love to get more from other countries where we don't think about them as horror producers. But maybe next year.
Yeah, and Trista here set up most of the guests this month, and kind of on the what you're saying there, she asked a lot of people that I wouldn't have thought about in different fields in horror.
Yeah, and the ladies of horror all know each other at this point because we're all brought into the same stuff all the time together. So we know each other, but we also know some that are lesser known. And that's why I personally brought in Jamie Farding, because she's with Savage Zach. I do a lot of photography with her, but I've seen her work, and her work is excellent. People haven't seen her work yet. That's why I brought her in, so that I could give her a little bit of what the others are getting, basically. And also because that's always a little bit harder to talk about, like Tomas, that I had brought into Cinema Crazy, passed away last summer, and he was her business partner, and she's working on finishing his film. So it's going to have his name on it because it's his film, but she's the one who's doing all the legwork to get it finished. So I wanted her to be included so that others see that you might be behind the scene, but you still matter.
Trista, do you have another question?
Yeah, I read some of those interviews and they were really interesting. And like you mentioned, a lot of them are people I know already just from working in the industry, but I really loved reading them, and thank you for the exposure for these women that truly deserve it. I'm wondering, what do you think you learned the most from those interviews?
Well, you always hear about women being catty about each other. That's not the case, yo. Like, read these interviews and see how much people are like pushing for each other in these interviews. Like, I've even got some that are coming up for posting soon because I've read all of them, whether they're posted or not. Because I go over them to make sure nobody made some ridiculous typo, so that I can make sure that capitalizations is right, and like nobody said something that makes them sound ridiculous because they made a typo and they forgot a word. If they do, I send it back to them. I'm like, is that really what you meant here? Because this makes you sound really mean. I'm sure that's because the rest of the interview is super nice, but this bit. So
yeah, I got those emails you sent me. You got my revisions out.
Yeah. So that, yeah,
Thank
so if there were revisions needed, like that's why I read them ahead of time. But that's what I noticed. Like some of them would literally say like, hey, if you're new in the business, come to me. I got you. I'll tell you where to go and where not to go. But like, it's not just like the whole like uplifting each other. There's also like a support. Like they're talking about their influences and who's important to them. But I also made sure to ask everybody to tell us who to look at. Because that's how you bring up people that people haven't heard of yet. Because like I got Sarah French's interviews coming up. People know who she is because we've seen her a bunch. So it's easy to know about her, but then she can give us ideas on who to go to. She's more open because she loves everybody. It's just how Sarah is. She loves everyone. But like, I've also interviewed like authors that are a little lesser known. And Morgan Electra, I've known her for like 20 years because we were on those old message boards together. She's become an author since then. And she used to be a hired writer. Like they tell her what to write and she'd write about it. And now she writes what she wants. And she gave me a list of authors, of female authors that half of them I'd never heard of before. So that's what the point of that whole thing is. It's like, talk about yourself, tell us what you're doing, but also create like a big support of each other. Because also at the same time, a lot of the ladies I've interviewed have said that they've been reading all the interviews. So you never know. One of the directors that I've interviewed might see somebody else for the first time and be like, I love her special effects. I want her. Like, so that's kind of the goal. It's not just to give exposure to each person individually or to the fact that there's women in horror. Like I read some stats recently that are just so sad. Something like women directors are 6% of the industry. 6? No, there's more than that. Give them the work. So it's important to say, hey, they're here, they're great. Please do hire them. But it's also like, hey, ladies, let's hire each other a little bit. Just a little bit. When I do my photo shoots, my FX girls are FX girls. They're ladies. I could hire dudes. That'd be easy. They're everywhere. But it's also just as easy to find a woman to do a job that's usually done by a man. And that's why, like, so far my calendars behind the scene work is 100% women. In front of the camera, we've had more women than men, but it's mostly because when you look for models, women are like, me, and dudes are like, wait, what? So it's been like one of those where for the models, it's been a little reversed. Women are all willing to model and men are like, huh, what? Why would I do that? So it's been harder to find dudes, and finding women has been easier. But for the behind the scenes work, it's been, because I know these women, I've been able to hire them and get them to work with me. Or we do a lot of trade. A lot of the photography stuff is on trade. So everybody makes no money, but at the same time, everybody gets work for their portfolios. That way I can bring a newer photo assistant to work with someone like Cynthia Rothrock, who's been in the industry since the 90s, in the action industry, and she's been modeling since then. So it's easy because these women like her and say Tiffany Shepis, they know what they're doing. So if you bring an assistant who doesn't fully know what they're doing yet, it's okay. It's going to still look good, but they're going to learn with you. They're going to learn with people who know. So I wanted to kind of do the same for film and authors, and because like a film director might see a writer and then they might see their book and then they might want to adapt that book. Like I know it's probably a really lofty goal, but that's kind of what I want to do with it all. Help people connect, because connect is how you get the work done.
So Cinema Crazed is the website.
Yep.
I have the link here. People can.
You have the link, great. Yeah. Because we have that awkward dash in the middle. We had to have it. The other one was taken, but nobody's using it, but it's taken. So we had to have it. It's cinema-crazed.com.
Very good. And it's been great. It's been very nice to talk with you.
It's been nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think a lot of your advice is really sound and really practical, and I think aspiring creators will get a lot out of it.
I hope so. And if you have films, just send them to us. Worst that's going to happen is we don't have time, because that does happen where we just have too many movies. There's 3 of us. So there's 3 of us and we don't really have any kind of budget to get more people. So, but we'll try to get to it.
Very good. All right. And I'm going to go check out Bloody Mallory if I can find it.
If you can find it. If you can't, let me know.
All right, very good. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Bye.
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 Thanks for watching. Take care.
Hi, I'm Danielle Harris. You might know me from some of the Halloween movies or Hatchet movies or a bunch of other random shit. And you are my